Good evening, YouTubers. Tonight, I will discuss direct democracy and referendums. I have a feeling that some of my YouTube viewers have been waiting for this one. Now, there is direct democracy and representative democracy. Representative democracy is when the people vote for someone to make laws on their behalf, or to propose laws on their behalf, and to debate the issues on their behalf. They vote for someone to have the voters give somebody the authority to make laws that they approve of, that the people approve of. Whether the person voted in is a member of parliament, is a person individually as a member of parliament, a political party, or a president. Now, that's representative democracy. Direct democracy is when the people directly vote on laws, directly participate in making laws for their nation. Is where individuals cast the votes. Is where citizens all cast the votes. That's direct democracy. The ancient Greeks first came up with it. The ancient Athenians first came up with direct democracy. These days, of course, we have most democratic countries have representative democracy. Now, my question to advocates of direct democracy, and I know there are many out there, the most prominent advocate of direct democracy that I know of, well, I don't personally know, but that I know of, the most prominent, is a former US Senator called Mike Gravel. Now, I have a question for advocates of direct democracy. I like to analyze representative democracy and how it, and to make it truly fair and truly representative and truly what the people want in a government. That's my area. But when it comes to direct democracy, I have very little knowledge of the subject. I haven't done a lot of research on it yet, but I will, rest assured. But if there's anybody who can help me out here, I'd be happy if you leave a comment. Now, how do you go about doing direct democracy where the people directly vote on issue-by-issue basis? How can you have a people's parliament if a country has, say, a population of 10 million with, say, 6 million eligible voters, the other 4 million are children and foreigners, let's say 6 million eligible voters, and they all form their own gigantic parliament. Every person has one vote, and they vote on an issue-by-issue basis. Now, how will this work? Because issues need to be debated, and there will still be, even under a direct democracy, there will still be positions of authority needed. Police, military to keep law and order, and you'll still probably need a head of state to represent you. And see, in some way, if the country is a democracy, it's still a form of representative democracy. Your head of state represents you, represents the country, represents everyone. So there will still be some representation and some positions of authority even under a direct democracy. I do not see how collective groups can manage something without some form of leadership. So in this direct democracy, who gets the leadership positions? It's in the parliament. So who is the head of certain groups? How is it going to work? Then there will still be small grains of representative democracy where groups of people vote in for their leader to represent their group. That's the way I see it. There will always be some form of representation and some form of elected authority or unelected authority in the country. I do not see how direct democracy works. And even in ancient Greece, in ancient Athens, even Athenian democracy, the people who voted on all the issues it was very, very, very restrictive over who could cast a vote. So it was a parliament in a way. It was a parliament in a way. Large groups of people, of course. A really big parliament, of course. But very, very restrictive. There were people who could not vote on the issues, who could not make laws. Women, slaves, people who did not who did not complete their military service, and many more severe restrictions. So even ancient Greece had the people in authority and everyone else. So how do you go about doing direct democracy? And another question I have to ask is, how will you run an economy with a direct democracy? So I'm going to be called in, like in America, like jury duty, for example. I'm going to be called in every other day to debate and vote on certain laws. And then I have to do my day job, whether it be industrial work or farming or an office worker. How do you, how would I explain this? Marry the two of being your own representative and having a day job, where you have to go into a giant hall in your town hall and then cast a vote on many issues and also present your opinion on several issues, being your own MP, and then the rest of the time you do your other job. How does it work? Please, I'm a political scientist, but I'm a little bit stumped on this one. Please give me some, excuse me, assistance here. The next issue I would like to discuss is referendums. Now, this is when a parliament puts a question directly to the people. Yes or no, or these are the options available. The people will decide on a certain issue. So that is direct democracy. But direct democracy when the representatives feel direct democracy is proper. So then it's called a referendum. The Swedish model is most interesting because they have like a referendum once every 3 months or so, or 6 months. They always have all these regular referendums, but they're still a representative democracy. So how do I explain this? The Swedish model is an interesting combination of direct democracy and representative democracy, because they have referendums on a regular basis. I'm sorry if I repeated that. Now, what would cause a referendum? What would be what would justify a referendum in a representative democracy? Well, it's usually when you want to change vote in a new constitution or make amendments to an existing constitution. So it fundamentally changes the way a nation is governed, So it has to be taken to the people directly. So when it comes to constitutional issues. And sometimes there are laws that are so fiercely debated in a parliament, and representatives, the members of parliament, are terrified that they'll make the wrong decision for the country, that they'll say, okay, we'll put it directly to the people. What do you think on this issue? Yes or no? So sometimes when there's decisive issues that the representatives are frankly timid to confront, they put it directly to the people. But it rarely happens, these referendums. That's why referendums are not very common, because, as you know, MPs are most of the time, almost all of the time in fact, ready to vote directly on the issues and not put it directly to the people. There is one more thing I have to mention about direct democracy. Perhaps the way to go about direct democracy is still representative democracy, but more representatives and less constituents per representative. For example, one person in the parliament represents 100 people or 50 people instead of 100,000 people or 10,000 people. Instead of representing a large group of people, each MP represents only a small group of people. So then that makes a really gigantic parliament, but that means more direct democracy. The less people an individual MP represents, the more direct the democracy is. So maybe that's one way of going about it. I hope this video has been educational, and please, I want to know what you guys think. Tell me about this one, about direct democracy. Thanks for listening.